Welcome to Vanguardia America's weekly news roundup. I'm James Garcia. Puerto Ricans last week marked the second anniversary of the deadly catastrophe caused by Hurricane Maria. An estimated 3,000 people died as a result of the hurricane, though some estimates go even higher, making it the deadliest natural disaster to hit the U.S. in 100 years. Puerto Rico survived a near miss by Hurricane Dorian last month, but the island has had to endure an on-again, off-again barrage of verbal insults from President Trump, who's complained about the money appropriated to pay to repair the storm's damage. Only about a third of the funds approved by Congress for the island's recovery has been doled out so far. Thousands of families still live with tarps draped over their homes in lieu of permanent roofs. The island also has been a hotbed of political tumult since Maria struck. Governor Ricardo Rosselló was forced to resign in disgrace after massive protests this summer. Reverend Damaris Whitaker, a New York minister who's been helping with the recovery, told NBC that Puerto Ricans are ready to heal, adding, "Like my grandmother in Puerto Rico used to tell me, se acabó lo que se daba," which loosely translates as, time is running out. The Trump administration announced this week it will end the long-standing practice of releasing people who apply for asylum and then remain in the United States until they have their day in court. Most will now be forced to wait indefinitely in Mexico. The policy change is mainly aimed at deterring Central Americans who've been fleeing their countries for the U.S., though thousands more from around the world will also be affected. More than 458,000 migrants, most of them refugee families from Central America, had been detained at the U.S.-Mexico border since October of 2018. Critics say shipping the migrants back to Mexico instead of letting them stay in the U.S. will only worsen already desperate conditions for them. Recent reports have shown that migrants sent back to Mexico under the policy have been robbed, kidnapped for ransom, raped, tortured, and killed, according to the online news site Vox. The 2019 U.S. Latino GDP report was released today at the second annual Latitude Conference in San Diego. The report examines the economic impact of the nation's fast-growing Latino community. Latitude co-founder Sol Trujillo said Latinos are 1 in 5 U.S. residents and generate the equivalent of $2.13 trillion in gross domestic product. The report is part of an effort by Trujillo and other Latino leaders to reverse grossly inaccurate stereotypes and misconceptions about the role Latinos play in the U.S. and our economy. Thomas Saenz, President and General Counsel for the Mexican-American Legal Defense and Educational Fund, sat for a Skype interview recently with Vanguardia America to discuss a new lawsuit by Latino grassroots groups that's designed to block the Trump administration's efforts to gather government records about the citizenship status of every person in the United States. President Trump issued an executive order to collect the data after the Supreme Court rejected his administration's attempt to add a citizenship question to the 2020 census form. Saenz also talked about the state of civil rights in the U.S. nearly 3 years into the Trump era, and offered a peek at what lies ahead for MALDEF. The organization recently marked its 50th anniversary. To watch the Skype interview, visit VanguardiaAmerica.com. Maurice A. Ferrer, the first Hispanic mayor of Miami, has died. Ferrer served as mayor for more than a decade, beginning in 1973. Born in Puerto Rico, Ferrer lost the mayor's office in 1985 to a Cuban-American contender, Javier Suarez. When Ferrer began his first term on Miami's city council in 1967, Latinos were 3% of the city's registered voters. Latinos now account for 58% of Miami voters. Ferrer died of cancer. He was 84. 21-year-old Jerome, who appeared in the film When They See Us, made history, even as history repeated itself. Jerome was the only Latino to win an Emmy at this year's awards ceremony. His Emmy win came just weeks after the release of a new report that found Latinos buy 1/5 of all movie tickets in the U.S., but star in less than 3% of its films. To subscribe to our weekly roundup of news and information impacting the Latino community, or to hear our Newsmaker podcast, visit VanguardiaAmerica.com. For Vanguardia America, I'm James Garcia.